Okay, so what if I told you that one of the smallest words in our language, the word ought, is pretty much the only thing holding our entire world together? Sounds kind of crazy, right? But that's the powerful and maybe a little unsettling idea we're going to dig into today. It all comes from the second chapter of J. Daniel Alejo's book, Tending the Garden.
So let's start with a little thought experiment from the book. Just picture it, a world with no shoulds, none. No obligations, no duties, no real right or wrong. I mean, at first, that sounds like total freedom, doesn't it? No pressure, no guilt, just you and your desires.
But here's the twist. The book argues this isn't freedom at all. It's drift. You see, without a should to aim for, our choices just become weightless. Our desires kind of lose their meaning because, well, nothing truly matters more than anything else. You might still want stuff, but you'll have totally forgotten why you should want it. And here is where the argument gets really interesting. This is the first big shocker. You might think, okay, losing should is a moral problem, an ethics problem. But the book claims the very first thing to collapse isn't our morality, it's reason itself. This slide really lays it out perfectly. On the one hand, you have logic as just a machine. Gears are turning, information is being processed. If A, then B. Sure, that still works. But now look at the other side. Without ought, you lose the value judgment. You can't say a logical conclusion is better than an illogical one. You can't even argue that you should care about the truth. Reason becomes a tool, but a tool without any purpose. So here's the takeaway. Without value, reason doesn't guide you toward anything. It just happens. There are no good reasons or bad reasons anymore. There are only chemical reactions in your brain and forces pushing you around. The moment you say, you should believe this because it's logical, boom, you've just admitted that ought is real. And this is where you start to see just how deep this idea goes. I mean, look at these words we use every single day. Useful, rational, better. We don't even think about it, but every single one of them is secretly hiding a moral claim. Useful for what? For a goal you should be trying to reach. Rational why? Because you ought to believe what's true. Our most basic language is built on this foundation of ought. Okay, so if reason itself depends on ought, what about the stuff that holds us all together, as a society? Well, it turns out ought is the bedrock there too, especially when it comes to trust and justice. The book has this really powerful way of defining trust. It's not just about predicting how someone will act. It's the belief that they are anchored to a should, especially when it gets tough. You trust someone because you believe they won't just throw what's right out the window because something easier or more convenient comes along. And if you take that anchor away, what's left? Just performance, calculation. You might act like a good person, a good friend, but there's no such thing as a real promise or a real betrayal because there's no standard you're violating. It's just loyalty that hasn't gotten a better offer yet. And that brings us to justice, something we all feel so passionately about, right? We march, we protest, we demand fairness. But let's stop and ask, what are we actually doing when we call something unjust? What's the claim we're making? This is really the heart of it. A claim of injustice is a massive moral claim. You're not just saying, hey, I don't like this, or my group doesn't like this. You're saying this is fundamentally wrong, and it would still be wrong even if every single person on Earth said it was okay. Take away a real ought, and justice just melts into branding or tribalism or really just a raw power game. So, if reason is gone, trust is gone, and justice is gone, what's left for us? Well, this path leads us to the final stop, the total collapse of personal meaning. Think about your own goals, trying to become a better person, to learn something new, to grow. Those goals only make sense if there's a real standard of better that you're aiming for. Without ought, trying to become a better person has no more objective weight than choosing vanilla ice cream over chocolate. It's just a preference. And that's not meaning, that's just decoration. So it's so important that we reframe what ought even is. It's not about some big list of rules designed to make you feel guilty or ashamed. Think of it as orientation, a compass. It's the thing that tells you there's a direction that's actually worth moving in. It suggests that meaning isn't something you just make up, but something you can actually find. So, if we follow this thread of logic all the way to the end, we find ourselves standing at a crossroads. And according to the book, this is an unavoidable choice that the whole argument forces right on us. And here it is. the existential fork in the road. Path 1, you can embrace radical nihilism. You just have to admit that all of our deepest values, fairness, love, even being rational, are just sophisticated personal tastes with no real grounding in anything. Or there's path 2. You accept that a real ought exists, that some things are genuinely, truly better or worse, no matter what any of us thinks.
The book argues that any worldview has to be able to bear two kinds of weight to be considered true. And a world without ought fails both tests. It fails inductively because it just can't explain our real, lived experience, that deep gut feeling that some things are just wrong. And it fails deductively because it completely falls apart under pressure. It gives you no reason at all to keep a promise when it hurts. And that brings us to this powerful, summarizing idea of the whole argument. If your map of reality has no place for this fundamental human experience of ought, then that map can't actually be a map of you or of the world we're all living in. So this is where we'll leave it. If the argument holds up, if ought really is necessary for meaning, for reason, for justice, well, that leads us to the next, and maybe even harder question. Knowing the compass exists is one thing, but how do you know it's actually pointing true north?